And we're off.
We're off.
Well, I'm just going to start off, John, just because I started off yesterday when we had Mr. Lepresti along the way. And where is John Najarian at this point? I mean, we were going through some of the travels. I mean, it's truly an amazing thing. You've got. I said that you actually probably have more hours in than most of the guys working in those airports. So where are you?
Well, let's see. So this will be my third trip to Europe this year, Pete.
We're in March 2nd.
Yep, I'm closing in on 100,000 miles, and we're not even done with the first quarter.
It's pretty unbelievable.
I'm going over to Madrid for a 25-minute speech, Pete. And the compensation is very reasonable.
Out of curiosity, John, what is Madrid like this time of year as far as like weather? I that shows you how naive I am, but what's it like now?
Well, it's believe it or not, it's really cold there right now, Pete. It's probably like Chicago. It's 26 is the low and 45 is the high. Now that's unusually cold for them, but it's not at all like the summer when it's like 105.
Yeah.
You know, they have wild swings in their weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right now I'm in the American Airlines lounge waiting for my flight tonight.
So John will be a little less loud, a little less colorful, likely because of the fact he's got guys around him who are probably going to come over and start going, "Hey, buddy."
Colorful.
Yeah, colorful. Strider Martin, one of the greats. Anyway,
one
go
of
ahead.
The all-time greats. All right, well, welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. I'm John Najarian. He's Pete Najarian. Jared is handling the board and all of the graphics today. And the 1 minute macro, Pete, I'm not sure if you saw this, but it was a record high inflation reading over in the Eurozone. The entire time they've had the Eurozone, Pete, it's never been a higher reading than it is right now. So that's my.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, I'll tell you what, my macro has kind of been focused on sort of the same thing for a while now, John, but the 10-year, it's over 4. It's not pushing on 4. It's now over 4. Not by much, but it's above 4. Then you look over at the 2-year. Well, we're pushing and sitting somewhere right near 5, right? I mean, that's something. And then add into that the dollar itself, trading right around 105, got 78. You put all of these things together, and now we are sitting in a spot where I think from a macro perspective, the markets are going to have to start dealing with this, even though we've already dealt with a lot of this in February. It's starting off the same way in March. So far, that's where we are. Do we have John? I know it's not always easy. Well, it looks
nope, I think we lost him.
All right. Well, we'll pick him back up. I'll tell you what. I'll jump into a little bit of this Octa, and we'll see if John can jump back up in here with us and get the reception back. Octa jumps. That's exactly right. When you look at these highlights, I'll tell you, the earnings, pretty impressive. I mean, they continue to be somebody who absolutely just ripped the earning part and moves a little bit higher. They came in at 30 cents. They were looking for 10 cents. A year ago, they lost 18 cents. But they've had 4 quarters in a row where they have beat the expectations. They've got great free cash flow. Just about everything you could read from this report, you'd say, you know what? I like what Octa's doing right now. And the stock is up about 8%. It is still well off of the 52-week highs of 177, trading underneath 80, but a nice jump today. John, are you back?
I am back, Pete.
Cool. All right.
The problem was one of these guys went walking by and kicked out my plug.
See, I told you that was going to happen.
But they weren't walking behind me. They were walking in front of me.
All right, Octa.
Must be a big fan of MSNBC or something. All right. Well, just like you were saying, Pete, the beat was pretty substantial. They tripled up on the top line, bottom line numbers were just fantastic. Other than what you said, Pete, the only thing I'd raise is maybe that Billings were up 18% year over year. So still a lot of nice double-digit growth. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's hit Salesforce, Pete,
Yeah,
because one of your friends and one of your idols, Mark Benioff.
love them.
Gosh, what a fantastic manager! And ever since he got rid of the co-CEO thing, things have been looking better for Mr. Benioff. Shares are up good, and the bottom line number was good by what, 400 million almost beat.
Mhm.
Top line number they beat by about 32 cents. That's fantastic. He deserves the kudos that he's getting today.
Yeah, they cut their costs, John. They beat on their margins, they beat on their earnings, they beat on their revenue. The balance sheet is absolutely extraordinary. And this is a guy who was under fire by a lot of other guys who like to call him their friend. But the reality is he has done a great job of doing what he does best, which is trying to navigate really difficult markets. And I think he's done an amazing job. They've got their buybacks coming in there, 20 billion bucks. I mean, holy smokes. Then you look at the free cash flow, John. 10 billion. So this is a company that is running. They are running in the right direction. Have they had some maybe pitfalls in the past? Probably a little too much as far as acquisitions, maybe. I mean, that's always debatable. It's something we talked about. As a matter of fact, I can tell you this, a lot of the naysayers were the same guys who were absolutely excited that he was doing all these acquisitions. And then suddenly they now blame the acquisitions on why they've had some of the issues. That's kind of a bullshit way of doing it, isn't it? I mean, I'm just keeping it as clean as I can. But anyway, I like what Benioff is doing, and I think it's great to see the man really, truly, the man is as the CEO that he is. We all know that.
Yep, fantastic. Hats off to you, Mark.
Yeah.
Great job. Okay, Pete. So Macy's. Now, here's one that I haven't discussed with Pete prior to the show, but I'm going to lead off with this quote, Pete. The CEO said, "We believe discretionary spending will be under pressure across income tiers." And that could mean these kind of tiers, Pete, coming down, because he's basically saying that they're not going to have the sort of earnings that people are looking for. That's what's known as forward guidance. And I can't believe that they've got this stock pushed to the upside pretty strong today, Pete. Despite what he said, stock is up 10.5%.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think what people did like what they heard was inventories were at a lower level than they've been in the past. And so that was something they viewed as a positive. I think outside of that, they did have the earnings beat. I think when you look at what's going on with the company, partially at least, maybe there's a bit of a squeeze. We always have known that this is one of these stocks that has a significant short. And you're right, though. I'm a little bit puzzled with the idea that you and I talk about it every single time we're on Rebel's Edge and we're breaking down these companies. It's about the guidance. Well, when the guidance wasn't all that great and the company still goes to the upside, gives you a little bit of an idea that maybe there's a little bit of a squeeze going on right now. I don't know if that's sustainable or not, because as you said, when you look at that and you see some of the projections going out, it doesn't look like things are fantastic and everybody should be all excited. It seems like they're just saying, hey, look, we've got a little something, we're working on it, and we're trying to be as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I mean, so the report itself, Pete, they beat top
Yep.
line, bottom line. Okay, enough said. But the guidance is 42 to 48 cents versus 81 cents,
Hmm.
which was the estimate. That's the average of the street estimate.
Mhm.
Revenue, 5 billion. That's the estimate going forward, or that's what their guidance is. The estimate was 5.3.
Yeah.
So wow, they are
Yes.
really saying we're hitting a wall at
Yeah.
Macy's. And I'm just, like I say, I don't have a position, Pete, but if I did, I would be giving them both hands today. That would be
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at Silvergate, because my gosh, Pete, um, they have so many problems. The
Mhm.
the CEO of Coinbase said we're not using them anymore. If you want to use a bank and get money from your fiat currency, dollars, euros, that kind of stuff, primarily dollars because Coinbase is US based. Um, he said, we're going to use Signature Bank, but we're not going to use Silvergate anymore. Um, and, here's what Jared's putting up on the screen, folks, are some trades that we followed over the last couple weeks, because as you can see, since early February, they were buying puts and then they bought them again. And today, the stock, they wish it was still $6, Pete, or I
Look,
mean, 7.45.
yeah.
It's down 53% right now as we speak. What do you think?
Yeah, talk about a company that gets beat to death. And I tell you what, I don't know what the answer is that they could come up with now, John. I mean, part of the problem is these guys couldn't even piece together to get themselves the ability. They had to delay on some of their reports. I mean, I don't know that I remember the last time we heard anything like this. And as you mentioned, underneath $7, it's interesting. But when you look at the fact that they continue to have to issue debt and so forth, there is nothing out there. Here's the biggest thing that I came away with from this company today. We, the bank, remain. Will this bank be able to remain viable? When they're the ones saying that, John, that ain't a good thing at all. So, I mean, it's one thing for you or I to say, I don't know if these guys can handle this anymore, or blah, blah, blah. Now, they're saying that. That wasn't some other analyst. That was from the company. So, this is one that I think is in big, big trouble. We all knew that probably going in. It's been something that's been hanging around a little bit, but let's also remember it was a $162 stock a year ago. And here we are now trading what, 650, 680, somewhere in that range, for all the right reasons, it looks like.
Yep. Boy, if you wanted to pick up a bank dirt cheap, if you could shed the liabilities, Pete, it would probably be a good buy. But other than that, no.
No.
All right. My unusual today, Pete, is on ON. And this is on Semiconductor. There's bearish paper in here. What does that mean? That means people are betting the stock goes down. The March 70 puts. So these are basically 2 days, 2 weeks and 1 day into the future, because these are regular March. We're coming up on the 3rd of March, the first week of expiration. This is not that. These are 2 weeks further out. 70 puts with the stock at almost 73 doesn't mean it's a big, huge slide, but it's definitely a sign that somebody wants either A, protection, and they wanted it quick, or B, they want to bet that it goes a lot lower. And so they're buying just out of the money puts. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, you know, John, it's interesting because semiconductors, some have been big winners. We all know the NVIDIA story recently, and we talked about that, you know, ad nauseum, so to speak. But you know what? I don't think every one of these semiconductors is absolutely navigating the very difficult environment we've got with the same kind of a pace that we're seeing out of, for instance, an NVIDIA. And not everybody is that, and not everybody's in the AI world, which is something that I think is really what everybody really got so attracted by when we heard the NVIDIA numbers that came out. So yeah, interesting to see this one. I've got one for you as well, John. We don't talk about ETFs very often. I don't even like to talk about the ETFs all that often, but in this case, LQD. Now this is the investment grade corporate bond ETF. So in other words, the really solid, the blue chippers and all that kind of thing going into this. But why are they buying puts? And I'll tell you why, because essentially the LQD is going to drop as rates go up and so forth. And then obviously there's the reverse side. Well, we've watched rates go up. This stock used to be in the 130s. Now here it is today, trading about 104, 105, somewhere in that sort of a range. But what we're seeing, John, is somebody who had a great trade that wants to get out of that trade, but they want to stay within that market side. So they had the March 106, 102 put spread, meaning they were looking for this stock to go lower. It's done exactly that. They want to take some profits off the table, and now buying, 115,000 of the April 104 puts, and then selling the 100 puts. In other words, this is a spread. It's a $4 spread. They paid essentially $1 for that spread. So the possibility that they could maybe get up to 4, definitely represented here. And at least that is out there as an opportunity. So I think it's pretty interesting to see this, John. They think rates are going up. After what we've heard recently from all the commentary of the Fed and everything else, I would tend to agree that the rates are probably going to go up. So it seems like a pretty smart trade to me. And obviously we like seeing those and then following the smart money. That seems like smart money to me. They took money off the table, but they still want to be there. They went from March, they went to April.
Yeah, and you like to follow somebody who's been right, and that's somebody who's been right, whoever that somebody is. All right, Pete, we've talked about it all week, really, and you and Mark covered it very well yesterday. There's the combine that kicks off today. I'm sure the guys are out there stretching and getting ready already.
Yep.
but its coverage on the NFL Network starts at 3 o'clock.
Mhm.
So they could already be doing it, and maybe they'll show us tape of that. I don't know,
Mhm.
but this is going to be interesting because this is linebackers and D line. So this is
Yeah.
things that you and I pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, I think that I thought it would be fun, John, to maybe kind of take out a sleeper or two. And so I'll kick it off with Deion Henley. Now, here's a linebacker that's name is not familiar probably to anybody really outside of maybe the Pac-12, which is where he played. He played at Washington State. But before he went to Washington State, Deion was a wide receiver at the University of Nevada for a year. He converted over to linebacker. This tells you a little something about the athleticism of some of these guys. And that is something about the combine that I think is always remarkable, is to see just the talent level of what these guys all do. And it's absolutely amazing. Well, Deion, as a freshman, as I said, he was a wide receiver. He turns into a linebacker. He turns into a damn good linebacker. He goes out to the Pac-12, Washington State, and absolutely ripped it up. And I think this is the guy, 6'2", 230 pounds. Is he a little bit light? Maybe, but that is the route that people are taking these days for linebackers in the NFL. They got to be able to run. They got to be able to cover tight ends. This kid can do it all. And with his athleticism, he seems to me to be that kind of a sleeper that I don't know that he gets all the way into the first round, John, but he might be in the upper part of the second round. And this is a football player to keep an eye on. Do you got some sleepers as well?
I do, Pete. I mean, the ones that I thought really looked pretty good were like Miles Murphy from Clemson. Now, this is a D lineman, but he's 6'5", 275. And that these days, Pete, is a thin D lineman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, used to be that 6'5", 275. I mean, I don't know if Jim Marshall, a good friend of yours, was ever really 275. He might
Right.
have gotten up there on paper, but I don't know if he was ever really tipping the scales at 275. So this guy is like, thin and fast. So the guy that I liked the most last year, of course, was the big D tackle out of Georgia, Pete, because that big dude hauled his butt fast in the 40 for 340 pounds.
Yeah.
But this guy's 70 pounds lighter than that. And yet, I think because of his first step, Pete, he can really get through.
I think we might have lost John, so sorry about that. But I will tell you this, Drew Anderson is another one, and he is a heck of a linebacker also, Sanders, excuse me, at Arkansas. Transferred from Alabama, went to Arkansas. He's another one I would put in that category. So next we're going to hit for sports, we're going to hit the Detroit Lions. Now, why would you say, why am I going with the Detroit Lions? I'll tell you why. Because last year, believe it or not, they had a winning record. And I know a lot of people didn't pay enough attention to them because a lot of people overlooked the Detroit Lions in the NFL and a lot of the fans as well. Jared Goff is back to being that quarterback that he once was with the Rams when he came out of Cal Berkeley. The offense was not the problem. They had a great offense last year. They ran the ball well. He had great tight ends and wide receivers to throw the ball to, and Jared Goff had an absolutely unbelievable year. Matter of fact, he was the number 4 offense in all of NFL, and then Jared Goff leading that. And by the way, those 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, he had the least amount of interceptions of all of them. He only had 7 picks last year. So it says a lot about who Jared Goff has become underneath Dan Campbell as their coach. But here's the thing. They got the number 6 in the draft, first round, and the number 18 in the draft, first round. They have an opportunity here, and I think if they play their cards right and get the right players to Detroit, Detroit maybe gives the Vikings one heck of a run this coming year. Who knows what the Packers, who are in the dark along with Aaron Rodgers, and the Bears probably need a little bit more time. So I think the Lions are ready to make that kind of a move. And here's who I think they should take in that first round with the 6th pick. John was talking about his name, Miles Murphy, kid from Clemson. He's an absolute beast, and he's the kind of guy who could be a game changer on the other side of Hutchinson, who they took last year from the University of Michigan with a very high draft pick. But you know what? You get 2 big guys on the outsides, that changes the perspective of the offense in a hurry. So I think with that additional player there at number 6, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing is they need some DBs. This is the worst defense dang near in the NFL. As a matter of fact, Statistically, they were number 32 of 32 teams in terms of how many yards per game, almost 400 yards a game they were giving up. I think they need a cornerback. They got to get somebody in there to stop the pass. And I think this kid Ringo out of Georgia, and Georgia comes up a lot when you're talking about first-round draft picks last year and this coming year. But this kid Ringo, he's got the size that you need. He's got that length at 6'2", 200-pound kid. He can be the playmaker that they need. And I think if they add an edge rusher like they should and a corner, that could add them a couple more wins to them, and suddenly they could be maybe an 11-win type team, maybe even a 12-win type team with the offense that they've got. John, what do you think? Do you like what I picked out for Detroit, or what do you think? Maybe there's somebody else you think they should take.
Well, I'd like to know, Pete, how good of a poker player Campbell is. And I say that, folks, because right now he's making a lot of noise about, I'm not going to be going after free agents, and I'm not into a big trade scenario right here. We've got some great picks in front of us and blah, blah, blah. Now, that sounds to me, Pete, like a guy that's saying, if you want to come to me, you got to come to me with a really high round trade.
Yeah.
So if you want to move up to number 6 and you want to take, Jalen Carter or whoever it is, okay, but it's going to cost you. Because, otherwise he might be wearing whatever that is, silver and blue. So I think, Pete, he's playing some poker here. And like I say, if I had played poker with him, I'd know his tells better. But he's a good coach. And I really like the way he turned Detroit around. The whole attitude of that team is different this year than previous years. There's not even a comparison. Yeah. So I think they're in a great position with 2 first-rounders under the 20 picks, Pete. So other people covet that. And I'm not saying he'd trade one or both, but if somebody's going to come to him, they're going to have to come to him with a really attractive trade. And that's the position you want to be in. You want people to come to you. You don't want to go to somebody and try to say, hey, I'd like to trade down. That's the stupid crap the Bears always do. And that's why they're at the bottom of the division every year.
There's one other team that's got, well, there might be more than that actually, but at least I know one other team that's got 2 picks in the first round, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm not sure what direction they're going to take, but John, you know why they've got that extra pick?
Russell Wilson
trade. I'll tell you what, that GM should be gone. The ownership should be gone. The whole thing, they ought to clean the whole house and figure it out. And they're probably kind of doing that. Now they've got their coach, and we'll see if he's able to get that thing done right. But man, that still is just amazing to me how much they screwed that whole thing up, John. Just absolutely amazing. And it's building Seattle. It's building Seattle as we speak. Anyway,
oh yeah,
a lot of fun.
It'll let Pete, your friend, go out on top.
Yeah.
Because come year 2 or 3, he's going to have one of the most unstoppable teams, Pete, because he's done it in the past. And this time, I think, as long as he's got a healthy player or 2 in the right spots, like quarterback, he is going to win and win and win. All right. We're going to be back tomorrow, folks. Make sure you tune in for 3 at 3 both days. Pete and I won't be back until Monday with the next Rebels Edge. So we'll see you Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Introducing our new series of intimate in-person trading conferences in some of the greatest cities in America. It's Market Rebellion Live. Next up, this June in Sonoma County, California. Savor some of the finest wines in America while you level up your trading with Pete Najarian, John Najarian, AJ Monty, Ryan Mastro, and Bill Johnson. Sonoma is limited to just 25 seats to ensure every guest gets personal attention, so act now. Tickets are going fast.